Well, alrighty then. Alrighty then. Alrighty then. Alrighty then. In the immortal words of Jim Cornelius Carey, that's not his name. That's not his middle name. It should have been. Cornelius seems like Jim Carrey would have a. It seemed like that would go with his name, but it's not. Fun fact: on The Living Color, he went by James Carey. Remember that, Vince?
I do. I definitely remember that. Now I'm looking up his name. So keep with the introduction. Oh, it's Eugene. His middle name is Eugene.
I was close. It's something in there. Well, folks, you already know what time it is. Yes, episode 8. 8, 8. I got myself a date. Friday night at 8. And I cannot be late. Because she might be my mate. And that would be so great. Great, 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 great. Yay! That's right, episode 8, you guys. And you know where that's from, Vince. That's from Nutty Professor.
Nutty Professor. That was not quite a deep cut, but it was like, oh, that was like not as obvious a reference, so I appreciate it.
That was when he knew he was going to go on a date with Jada Pinkett. Miss Entanglement herself. All right, kids. Yes, I am the one, the only, Maximilian, a.k.a. Laren Moore.
And I am the second Vince Eustace. I'm a junior, so technically I am the second.
And folks, you already know what it is. You know, we've all got aliases and middle names and all kinds of shit. We're just all over the place, me and my co-hosts. But yes, you have made it to episode 8, 5, and 3. That means it's 8 of Popcorn
and Booze.
Now, I got a little bit of a background thing going because, I wanted to switch it up a little bit, Vince. Normally I'd be in the confines of a room with my BC stickers as a decorum and background decorations, but we're gonna switch it up today. Now you get an open living room type situation.
It's very spacious. I like it.
Yes. And with that being said, kids, you already know what the show is about. It's about pop culture and wrestling and movies and Vince's hairline.
Confused with that contemporary humor.
Yeah, and your hairline. I don't know what your hairline has to do with it. I just felt like bringing that up.
I don't either. That's why I try to move past it, being like, I'm not sure where this is going.
Well, it's because you have hater hairline. All right.
Hater hairline. No. I know we're trying to keep like a time limit on this, but I would like you to elaborate what a hater hairline is.
Well, it kind of slants to the right.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like what haters do when they backpedal and recant on things that they were hating on. They kind of think about it and they're like, man, I shouldn't have hated. So they kind of slant like, oh, let me slant more to the left. That's what your hairline's doing. That made absolutely no sense.
No, that was a reach.
Hey, listen, it's been a long week. I've had a lot of vodka in my system. With that being said, let's start the show. What do we got, Vince?
Man, that's why you're not drinking. All right, so one of my favorite shows of all time, The Simpsons, we're going to talk about real quick. Have you watched The Simpsons?
That is a theme by Danny Elfman. I am not a huge fan of The Simpsons. I have watched about as much Simpsons as anybody else in the world, but I've never been this hardcore Simpson fan guy. I remember, I'm sure you do too. We were both super, super young, but I remember one of the first episodes of The Simpsons in like was it 89, 90?
It was 89. It was Christmas 89.
Christmas 89.
I was in first grade, so I'm assuming you were also in first grade at the time.
I believe so, yeah. I believe so. And it was a derivative of the Tracy Ullman show, right?
Yeah.
Remember?
Exactly. So they have a large cast of voice actors who have been on the show for years. The reason we're going to talk about it now is Harry Shearer, who has done so many iconic voices on the show, came out recently and talked about, I guess, the idea of white voice actors doing non-white characters. Because on the show, The Simpsons, there's basically five actors who do all the characters, including some non-white characters. And his opinion was basically that, hey, my theory with acting is you're playing someone that you're not. So he thinks it's okay for a white actor to play someone not white as a cartoon character. I think his views are a little different if you're playing an actual person in a live action movie, but when it comes to the voice characters, he thinks it's okay. But he's a white guy. Love to hear your thoughts on this, just because it's something that has been touched upon. A lot of white actors have been stepping down from their voice roles to give it to like the, I guess, appropriate people of color. But there has been a debate on whether this carries over on cartoons or not. So I want to hear your take on this.
Well, I've got mixed feelings. I'm in the gray area about this. I'll talk about both. I'll talk about both halves of my feelings on this. The first half, or the first portion of it is, well, basically, so here's the negatives and the positives, I should say. So the positives are, if it is a situation where it is a person of color, the character, but it's kind of a character, he's got an outrageous voice. I personally don't mind a white character playing a character of color if it's for the sake of character work. Like Apu from The Simpsons. I know Harry Shearer does the voice of him.
That was Hank Azaria.
Oh, excuse me, Hank Azaria. Harry Shearer does a bunch of other voices, but
he does like Mr. Burns, Mr. Smithers. Yeah. I think he does Dr. Hibbert. So he does Hibbert. Dr. Hibbert is black.
Hibbert. And then he does the newscaster too, I believe.
Kent Brockman.
Yeah. So Hank Azaria does the voice. And like we were talking about earlier, I think it was actually Hank Azaria that made a point of saying that he, at one point, he not too long ago, he said that he kind of felt bad that he was voicing the character of an Indian person, an Asian Indian person, and that I don't think he said he would step down. I don't really remember exactly but he had some sympathy towards that. There was an article about Hank Azaria saying that maybe
I think he is stepping down from doing Apu. I think,
and I think exactly. I think that's what I read too. And maybe rightfully so. I mean, keep in mind, you have to remember it's kind of sad. Like, for instance, a lot of these shows started back when things weren't as PC and weren't as socially, the awareness socially wasn't as great as it is now due to the advent of social media and the internet. Back then, people kind of overlooked a lot of things. And the sad thing about it wasn't even that long ago. We're talking about a show that started in 1989. And you mentioned it yourself. You said Christmas 1989, where you would think the world would be full-fledged into this political, awareness, racially, racial awareness of what's appropriate and not. And it kind of wasn't. It's because even people of color weren't really throwing a fuss about it. It was just kind of, they took it for face value, and they were just kind of like, oh, it's a character, And
also early Simpsons, and I mean, to an extent now Simpsons, but Simpsons was always more cutting edge, pushing the envelope anyway. So like, if they weren't super sensitive to things, people would, I think, give them a pass. Be like, it's Simpsons. Like, they're going to offend people. Like Bart Simpson saying hell and disrespecting people.
Yeah. And exactly. But now that we're in these more politically correct times, people are, they have issues with it. They take offense to it. And my point is, it's kind of, you got to think about it like this. Like, boy, if they would have just in the beginning just cast a person of color, they wouldn't even have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Like, there were no Indian actors back in 1989 who were comedians from Bollywood or even American, or you couldn't find any. My only answer to that would be is because the creator, it's Matt. How do you pronounce it? Matt Groening or Groening?
I want to say it's Matt Groening.
I think it's Groening. I always say Groening,
because it looks phonetically like groaning.
Yeah. Visually, it does. When you look at it, the pronunciation looks like groaning, but it's Groening. I can only assume that when he created the show, he wanted a more exaggerated, over-the-top version of an Indian man. So what better way to do that than a non-Indian person? I can only imagine that's what he wanted. But again, there's a lot of, or maybe he thought that actually casting an Indian person would be offensive. So he was just like, well, I'll let a white person take the heat. I don't know.
Exactly. Like, hey, I'm going to hire you to do this role, but you have to really be more Indian. like be like more stereotypical. And like, well, I went to Yale, I went to Juilliard. How dare I've done Shakespeare? Like, don't you dare talk to me like that. So I can see it that way too. Exactly.
It's like he wanted a stereotypical 7-Eleven Indian worker, but fucking Cal Penn walked to the set.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, I'm super whitewashed. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that type of scenario.
I don't talk like that at all.
Yeah. So I think he didn't want to deal with that. Hold on 1 minute. I got some serious background noise going. Just keep talking.
Sure. So I'm going to say something, and then I'll ask your opinion when you get back. You mentioned that you think it's okay when the character they're playing is not playing like a stereotype. So I personally think that since not Harry Shearer, Hank Azaria does Lou, one of the police officers who happens to be black. He does Lou as a Sylvester Stallone type voice.
All right. Sorry about that.
So basically what I was saying is Hank Azaria does one of the cops, Lou, who's black, as he's gone on record saying, I just do a Sylvester Stallone impression. So he's like, hey, chief. Like, he does specifically Stallone. So I don't think, like, Hank Azaria should stop playing Lou because he's not doing, like, a stereotype, like a caricature of how black people are supposed to sound. He's literally doing a caricature of a white person who just happens to
look black,
be a black person. So, like, that stuff I feel like, all right, like, Dr. Hibbert, I feel, isn't like the same. Like, it's the same thing. He has like a different type of voice, but
you sound like this. It's a little bit like this.
Yeah, and well, when you say it like that, it sounds like more stereotypical. But I don't know. It's tough. And like when it comes to these types of issues, I always feel like I have to, like, I can have an opinion on it, but at the same time, I feel like I should defer. Like if my black friends and my black actor friends are being like, no, like we should switch it up, then it's like, all right, that's what we should do.
No, I'm with you on that. I do think this is we're in a social climate. We've been in a social climate, but I understand, again, because of social media and the internet, people are able to voice themselves a lot more than they were able to 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago. So I think in a social climate like this, black people should be able to speak on this. People of color, period. And white people should kind of take a seat back and be like, okay, maybe it's time to step back and let them voice their opinions on this and let them decide whether or not. Like I said, it's not an issue to me if it's character work. If it's an actual person of color, that's an actual person of color, and it's taking away from actors of color, if it's taking away from them working, then yes, I think a lot of white actors should step down and let people of color take these roles, because it's limiting, like in a Key and Peele. It's putting a limit on roles that are available for people of color. So if it's taking away from black, brown actors, then yes, it kind of does need to stop. If it's character work, one thing. Taking away opportunities, another. We don't want that. So that's my take on it. And Harry Shearer, as he's entitled to his opinion, and again,
he probably wants to keep his job too. He's probably like,
he doesn't want to get fired.
I do these characters, like, I really love doing them. I want to keep it up.
Yeah. He also doesn't want to get fired. So I would expect him to say something like that, and he's entitled to his opinion. Again, if it leans to more towards non-people of color just doing character work, I'm fine with it. If it's taking away roles from people of color, then sorry, Harry.
All right.
Gotta go. So anyway, that's my opinion on that, and let's move right along, shall we, sir?
All right. So moving on to a little bit of movie news. There wasn't a lot of movie news this week, but you came across this article that I think we both found very intriguing. They've been talking about doing this for years, but it looks like they're getting the ball rolling on a Knight Rider movie. Knight Rider.
Done it. Okay, yeah.
I don't get why you were doing the Busta Rhymes song. We're talking about Knight Rider.
or the Timbaland version. Timbaland flipped that beat as well.
Wyclef also did too on a remix. It was on the single he did where he was dissing
Cannabis? Was it
LL
Cannabis,
Cool J.
Oh, LL Cool J, that's right.
But it was when he was still with Cannabis and they were dissing LL Cool J.
Cannabis was on the song, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Knight Rider, show in the 80s, grew up on David Hasselhoff, Mr. Feeney, William Daniel was the voice of KITT, the talking car. I recall them doing, I feel like they've been trying to do this for a long time now. I think Justin Lin is, I'm not sure if it was the last project he was working on or he's going to be part of this one too. But I mean, I think it makes sense. It's the future. We don't have talking cars. I mean, we kind of do, but not like that. Not like KITT. KITT was definitely a different breed. So I would love to see how they do a Knight Rider feature film in current day.
Well, I know a few years ago, maybe about 10 or 15 years ago, I don't remember, they did a TV movie.
Yeah.
And the KITT car was like a Charger or something like that. It was like was it a Dodge Charger? It was something like that. It might have been a Mustang. I think it was a Mustang. It was like a 2000 something Mustang. Kind of like what was it? The Mustang that Bumblebee turned into in Transformers.
Oh yeah.
It was that model, and it had the light flickering in the front that KITT normally has, and it talked. And I remember being annoyed, obviously, because they tried to update it and they made it a Mustang, and I was just like, there's nothing like that. What is that, Trans Am? Is that what that was? The original?
I think so.
I think it was a Trans Am.
I'm a really terrible car person, so I just knew it was cool. I was like, oh, that's a badass car.
I think it was an 80s Trans Am. I think that's what it was called. And it was just a cool car. So when they did this updated version, I was kind of like, eh. But I get it. You know, they kind of, you know, those that's not a current car.
Now, do you think because we've come so far along in terms of technology, we don't have quite KITT cars, but we do have cars that we have Alexas, we have Series, we have what was the movie Horrible Bosses? There was a huge sort of subplot or important part of the plot where they had sort of customer service on the the car was basically talking to them.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, because back in the 80s that was just such a completely out there concept that your car can talk. And it still isn't quite there.
Having a phone in your car was a huge thing. Car phones were oh my God,
yeah.
So no, you're absolutely right. I don't know. Would it be groundbreaking now? Is that what you're asking? With all the technology we already have?
Well, I mean, what else would they have to make KITT do? I mean, I think the fact that he'd have to be almost sentient, I guess. I don't know, because
fly. KITT didn't fly. Maybe they can make KITT fly now. I don't know. Turn him into a jet.
They'll probably put guns on it, like the old Batmobile, where pops out and just.
Or a James Bond car now. He's James. I don't know. Listen, you made a point of saying the show was definitely ahead of its time. It ran in the 80s. David Hasselhoff was a huge TV star at that point. He's actually known for his TV work than he is his film work. Fun fact, David Hasselhoff story. When we do these stories and we cover them, I like to tell you personal experiences I've had with either the scenario or the people involved. Because I have met a lot of celebrities. But about 10 years ago, I was at a liquor store on Ventura Boulevard over in Tarzana. And me and an ex at the time I was dating, we were getting some liquor from this liquor store. And we're parked in front of the liquor store. It's about 1 a.m, so the streets are quiet. You know, nobody's around. And I get out of the car. We had an SUV. She's driving. She gets out. She goes in the store. I get out of the passenger side, and I'm looking across the street, and I see a very tall white man figure coming our way, and he's stumbling across Ventura Boulevard. And I'm like, oh boy, he looks familiar. And he gets closer, and I go in the liquor store, and when the person walks in, it's revealed that it's indeed David Hasselhoff. And first of all, I didn't realize how tall he was. The man's 6'5".
Yeah.
Tall as shit. So I remember telling my ex, I was like, wow, that's David Hasselhoff. You know, the only thing I knew him from was obviously Baywatch and the few movies he did, but that obviously Baywatch and Knight Rider growing up. So we get our thing and then we're leaving, and I'm like, no, I gotta kind of see what's going on with David Hasselhoff. So he goes up to the counter. So I'm ear hustling and eye hustling. I'm on the other side of the liquor store by the entrance, and he asked the clerk for a bottle of Grey Goose. Granted, this was during the time where his alcoholism was really bad. I don't know if you remember that period.
Do you remember the hamburger where he's eating the Wendy's and?
Believe it or not, it was literally like that week that video had surfaced. The week I saw it. So when he got the bottle of Grey Goose, I was like, "Yep, well, that's the truth. Like, he's clearly got drinking issues." So he tries to buy. So he pulls out a credit card, and he's like, "Here, run it." Mind you, he's wearing some really dusty, tore up loafers. That's another thing. He's wearing like a black coat. He's wearing like a black leather jacket. He kind of looks like Michael Knight. He's wearing a black jacket, and he's wearing like black pants. And he's wearing like these dusty, dirty loafers. I don't know. Go figure. And he was like super drunk. You could tell he was. And he tries to buy the Grey Goose, and his card keeps getting declined. And I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm like, wow, these are hard times for David Hasselhoff. Like, he can't even buy a $20 bottle of Grey Goose. Or whatever the case was. It was just funny, and he was visibly drunk. And I remember at one point he kind of looked over at me and my ex like as if like he looked at us kind of like help,
like I just want to drink.
Like, I'm David Hasselhoff. You're not gonna buy me a bottle of Grey Goose, and we kind of just ducked out embarrassingly, and we're like, shit. But yeah, like that was a crazy time for him. That was the whole burger thing with his daughter. Listen, just a fun fact. Back to the whole. Knight Rider thing. Listen, I've been wanting them to make a movie since I was a kid, and I for the life of me, I could never understand why they wouldn't make one. And then they made the TV movie one, which was and now they're actually going to make a theatrical one. And I don't know, man. Things like this, I always say too little, too late.
Do you think it's going to be more of a Dukes of Hazzard kind of like comedy take on it, or do you think it's going to be like Fast and the Furious, like they're going to try and like really play like the action and make it not a joke? They're going to be like, oh, we're going to make this, try and make it like maybe tongue-in-cheek, but like a serious action film.
I don't know. That's a toss-up. A part of me wants to believe they're going to do what they did with Baywatch and what they did with 21 Jump Street. They're going to make it like this very farcy, raunchy comedy, maybe. Because that seems to sell more than them actually trying to make a serious film out of it. Listen, like I said, they did it with 21 Jump Street, and that movie was a massive hit, and so was the sequel.
They both were, both.
They did
like but yeah, like you were saying, like the other one's kind of hit or miss, more on the miss side.
Well, they did Baywatch, and that kind of flopped, and that had The Rock in it.
And he doesn't flop.
No, so so again, it's a kind of a hit or a miss, and it's kind of a toss-up what they're going to do. They might play it safe and be like, hey, let's just make this a raunchy filth comedy and make fun of Knight Rider rather than celebrate it. But then they might be like, hey, Fast and the Furious is still running. With Hobbs and Shaw, like all these big blockbuster movies with cars and stuff is still a big thing. Maybe we should make it a serious technology James Bond-esque film,
Yeah.
Either way, I'd watch it. I don't know if I don't know if it's something I would run to the theaters to see. I think
it depends. Like if they got Jared Leto in the lead, I'm probably gonna be like pass. But like if they get the right people involved,
Jared Leto,
like, right, yeah, we'll check it out.
It's funny. They're right now. I guarantee there's negotiations with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Right?
I was actually thinking like,
I guarantee
you with him.
I guarantee you right now they are talking to $7 production because they just want him to save everything, and why not? The Rock is an action star. I'd see it. I'd watch it. It'd be very cliche for them to cast The Rock, but I'd see it. Other than that, a classic show. I loved watching mostly the reruns because it aired mainly in the 80s, and me and you were both way too young or just being born. So I remember seeing a lot of the reruns growing up, but it was a great show, and it was ahead of its time. It really was. So if they do a movie, more power to them. Make sure you cast the right person. Make sure you do
We're
the right
ready.
script.
We've been ready. We've been ready. We stay ready.
Listen, 20 years too late. Let's get to it.
All right.
All right.
Moving on to the hip hop segment.
Hip hop, hip hop. It started in the park. Hip hop. It all started in the park. Yes. Yes, ladies and gents, you know right around this time what time it is, what a time it is, what a time. And that time is, I want to give a shout out to the two pioneers, the people that made me the man that I am, that made me the master, the ruler of the universe, like Psycho Sid used to say. Hip hop. Shout out to DJ Kool Herc, DJ Hollywood, the two pioneers. They did over there in Sedgwick in the Bronx. Here we are, you guys, 40 years, something years later, and I'm the man I am. And then we get to watch stuff like Rick Ross versus 2 Chainz. There would be no Rick Ross versus 2 Chainz if it wasn't for Kool Herc and DJ Hollywood. So shout out to them.
All right.
Was that your Rick Ross impression?
Yeah. I remember it was more pronounced. It was really pronounced on the song he did with Drake and Lil Wayne, the DJ Khaled song "I'm On One," and it sounded like he was in the studio asleep, and they like woke him up like it's your verse. He's like, oh, and then just like started rapping.
That's funny.
So we're gonna talk about your favorite rap group of all time, Migos.
Oh yeah, I love. Oh my God. That's their entire catalog right there. Every album they've ever put out, I just did that in one bar right now.
So Migos, very, very popular, very successful, but some news is broke that Takeoff might be looking at some legal trouble. He's being
serious legal trouble at that.
Yeah, he's being accused of rape.
Yep.
So like I like read the headline, then I read the article, and I was like, because I think the headline was like sexual assault or something like that. Yeah. It's like that can cover number one is never good, but it could cover like a broad like spectrum of, I guess, felonious actions. But when I read the article and the woman's accusations of actual rape, it was like, good Lord, like that's terrible. I mean, like it's one of those things where you never want it to be true. But if it did happen, then you're like, all right, justice hopefully gets served.
Yeah. Man, that's never an easy situation. Because like you said, it's always, as a person that's not obviously present in the moment it happened, is not friends or family of the accused or even the victim, all you could do is take a gray area. That's all you could do. And that being is, it can be true, it cannot be true. You don't know. From what I read in the article, it's depicted pretty graphically. The girl is claiming that he followed her into a room, I believe. There was some words exchanged, and then he basically, this is what she says, this is her account of it. He pushed her on the bed, flipped her over, ripped her clothes off, and proceeded to, I guess, rape her while she was on her stomach. So right. From that position, which I guess would be, I guess, doggy style. She claims that he just was on her while she was on her stomach. And in a situation like that, you don't know. I mean, that's graphic. I certainly hope he wouldn't put himself in that position, number one, but it definitely violate somebody like that who doesn't obviously want it. And it's rough because if it is a factual thing, if it is true, it's the common thing that's always happened when it comes to celebrities and even rappers mostly. It's always a power thing. It's a do you know who I am type situation, and you're not gonna fuck me. That's about as graphic and as about as straight on as I could be about it. That's their ideology. I am who I am, and you're gonna give it to me. Oh, you don't want to give it to me? Well, then I'll take it.
Yeah, because there's something, and I know we're going to move on to within this conversation, and I'm not casting my vote one way or the other on what happened with Tupac's situation. He did go to jail, so he was found guilty. But like, I know a lot of his defense and defense of his fans were like, oh, it's Tupac. Like, he never has to force. He can have sex with anyone he wants. Like, why would he force himself on someone? He can get sex whenever he wants. And I'm not saying this against Tupac. I'm saying this about other guys who have been accused of rape. I hate that excuse because, like you kind of touched on it, if you don't hear no that often, if every time you like meet a girl, they want to have sex with you, and then you have someone say no, then you kind of like are now be like, all right, well, I've never heard that before, so you either like more drawn to them, or you're like, no, this is gonna happen because I always get my way. Again, not a slight at Tupac, but like you mentioned, that it's happened to celebrities before. It's happened in the hip hop community, like Tyson as well. So I just hate it when guys in general use that excuse. Like, I can get pussy for free whenever I want. And it's like, well, one, girls don't brag about that, but two, like, that doesn't mean anything in terms of your innocence or guilt in this case.
No, it doesn't. And you know, it's the audacity to even think that, to be offended, because that's what some of these celebrities do. It's not that it angers them, but they're offended. They find it offensive for you to tell them no when it comes to anything, because of who they are. Again, I hope it's not true, because this could be a case of a victim just victimizing themselves for whatever. Maybe they got their feelings hurt. Kind of like the Kobe situation. Rest in peace. You know, he was accused of not only sexual assault but full on rape, and it was proven that that wasn't the case.
Actually, it wasn't.
Well, it was he was acquitted of it, wasn't he?
No, it was I don't think
Enlighten me. It was so long ago.
I don't think they ever actually went fully through with the case. There may have been
incredible evidence against her. That's all I know.
It was just like slut shaming evidence. It was more along the lines of, I think she had the semen of other guys also in her underwear, so they were trying to paint her as like, oh, she's a whore, so she's going around.
But I also think one of the things was, you're right. It was a slut shaming thing, but I think what helped his case was the fact that they said that it was post her getting raped. They made a point of saying, if she had been raped, why was she having sex after the fact? Again, don't quote me. These are things I just kind of remember. I haven't looked up the case in forever.
One thing I do remember, and I kind of appreciate Kobe doing this because you didn't have to do this, was maybe it was part of the settlement. He actually made a statement where he kind of admitted to, he said, I don't want to call him a rapist, but he kind of said like, oh, this was a consensual thing. And then things within that moment kind of changed. It was a miscommunication. And he goes, I thought what we were doing at that point was consensual. I now realize that in her mind, it wasn't. So he basically admitted that things happened against her will. And it wasn't just the fact they had sex. It could have just been like an act. It could have been like, grabbing the throat. It could have been like a certain thing. So that could have been just a miscommunication, but I kind of appreciated that he took the time to be like, she's not wrong here.
Well, whatever the case is, again, that case was like 15 years ago, and I honestly don't remember the details other than the what I remember in the moment right now about it. Listen, that's in whatever case, whoever's being accused in any situation, that is not something to fuck around with. Even listen, you just especially as a man, you have to be very careful what you say and what you do. Now, granted, you shouldn't have to tiptoe around every little detail to avoid getting rape charges put on you or accusations put on you, because some things you can't really avoid, and if there's mixed signals being sent and you take that and you act on it, the victim has to, the so-called victim has to take responsibility for that as well. But to avoid that, make sure you know what you're doing in that moment. Absolutely make sure. If that means ruining the moment sexually to ask a question, you better fucking ask.
Yeah.
I don't care if it ruins the moment. I've had sexual experiences
ruin a moment or ruin your life. Yeah.
Exactly. I've had
or
sexual
her
experiences.
Life. Like,
or
yeah,
her life.
Like,
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I've had personal sexual experiences where I'm involved in something, and if I feel like this might not be something that I don't care if it ruins the moment, I will ask.
Yeah.
I will make light of it. I will address it, and then we'll go from there. You just have to be very, very careful. As a person who, you know, if you're not sure, just address it. Just address it. Like you said, ruining a moment could avoid you ruining your life or somebody else's life.
Yeah.
It's just something that needs to be talked about. And on the other hand, and we've talked about this before, please, if you're a person that feels that they have been sexually assaulted or raped, please, I beg of any person that has ever accused anybody of that or is a victim, please make sure that's what it was, because you in turn can ruin somebody else's life with accusations that aren't true or a miscommunication. Even in the victim's case or the other side, they need to ask questions as well. They need to be vocal about what they're comfortable with. It's communication. It's all about communication. And if there isn't no communication, things could happen.
Yeah, but then on our end, as guys, we have to listen, because a lot of times the communication's there, where they're like, true. No, I don't want to, and we're like, oh, you're just playing hard to get, or like whatever.
Yeah.
You're not,
or
like,
you want it. Which
yeah,
is,
yeah.
You
Like,
can't. Yeah, you
yeah.
can't
So like, it's definitely on us to be like, all right, if they're saying something, be like really in tune and sensitive to like if they don't seem interested at all. Sometimes it's like a little like body language. Sometimes it's them flat out saying no. And if they say no, that's it. Like, it's a wrap. It's done. Don't even like no hard to get. Just
And men, especially young men, stop thinking with your dicks. I don't care. I don't care. Don't think with your penis. Use your real head. Use this head, because using this head could avoid using that head will get you in trouble. Using this head could avoid yourself from getting into something similar to this, or you know, that could equate to this. Listen, to wrap this up, I don't know, man. He better pray. He better pray that these are just false accusations, or there was an instance, like we said, where there was miscommunication. Although I don't know where there's miscommunication. There's no miscommunication of flipping somebody down and getting on them. So, not to make light of it, but if that's what happened, then there's no miscommunication there. And like I say about our other stories, I'm already not a fan, and I'm not going to sit there and say he's guilty because I don't know. But if he is, much like the rest of the people we've talked about, cancel, take off, cancel. Yeah. Bye-bye. I already don't like the Migos music anyway. So
yeah, I'm sorry that your hero has to fall like this. But moving on from someone that you highly respect musically.
Die a hero, or live long enough to see you become a villain.
So obviously Takeoff is someone that you look up to musically. Moving on to two guys who you don't respect at all musically, Rakim and Big Daddy Kane.
I fucking
multiple
hate those
occasions that you just think they're...
I have every Migos album to date. I have never listened to one Rakim track. I am so sick of those pioneers. How dare they be so good and pave the way for me? How dare they?
So we've talked about on the show before how Versus has been kind of blowing up this summer, where there'll be two producers or two rappers just putting their 20 best hits against each other, and then the audience is sort of deciding on Twitter who the winner is, when really we all win. So we just had 2 Chainz versus Rick Ross, which we both still have to see. But there's always talk about who the next versus battle is going to be. And Rakim, arguably one of the greatest rappers of all time, has opened a challenge to another arguably one of the greatest rappers of all time, but also arguably one of the most underrated rappers of all time, Big Daddy Kane. Both these guys blew up in the 80s, also have done some sort of underground tracks in the 90s, like still rap. Like if you still see them on like Funk Flex or other like radio shows doing freestyles, like they still can rap their asses off. They also were they had hits. They had like big hits in the 80s, in the 90s. Like people know who they are. So I would love to see it. I think I already know in my mind who I think would win a song battle. But what do you think of a Rakim, Big Daddy Kane versus battle?
I think that would be amazing for the culture. I think, listen, like you mentioned, this whole versus thing is amazing for the culture. And I know it hasn't been just hip hop artists, but it's celebrating black music.
Right.
Let's call it what it is. It's a celebration of black music. Every artist they chose has been a black artist, or mixed with black, or something. A mulatto, at least a Puerto Rican. It's there. This is a brown and black game, more so a black game, because that's where a lot of urban music kind of originated. And I think it's great for the culture. I think it's great for this climate. I know, Vince, our viewers are probably sick and tired, and I don't give two shits or two chains if they do or not. This is what we talk about. We talk about race relations because it's a very sensitive, but a very serious subject. And we are both very progressive people. I myself am obviously an African-American man, so I speak on it, the injustices, and there's a lot of injustices going on. So when you see something like this, it takes your mind off of that foolishness, and it celebrates black excellence. And shout out to Timbaland and Swiss for doing that, man. They thought up this whole thing, Swiss Beats, Patron time, and Mr. Timbaland, thicky. Thank them for starting this, and I think something like a Rakim versus a Big Daddy Kane will be great. It's great for the culture. That more so for hip hop than just black music. That specifically for black hip hop would be great. Now you mentioned it, and maybe you'll agree with this, maybe you won't. But we're both hip hop, connoisseurs and historians, hip hop heads definitely. If somebody were to say, who do you think is the better artist, I would have to go with Big Daddy Kane, for obvious reasons. If you were to look back at time, I believe Big Daddy Kane has more radio hits. He has more commercial appeal than Rakim did. Rakim is very rugged. He's very street. He's very New York. He kind of talks like this. What's up, son? There's no. Big Daddy Kane is a street, but keep in mind, Big Daddy Kane had a shirt open in videos. Big Daddy Kane was gyrating. Big Daddy Kane was dancing. He was doing shit. He was doing I work.
He was in Meteor, man.
Baby. He was in Meteor. Yeah, that's right. He was one of the Golden Lords.
Yes.
Please don't test me about my movie knowledge. But he had more sex appeal. He was a bigger commercial artist than Rakim. And here's another good thing. A lot of people don't know. Rakim never cursed. I believe he never cursed. I believe it was DMX that made a point of saying that when he met him. He was like, or maybe it's certain verses.
Yeah, I think early on he didn't, but there are definitely some songs he did with, like when Dr. Dre signed him, and then an album never came from it. I think he cursed on the Truth Hurts song. I've heard some. I think DJ Premier songs. He like cursed a little. He doesn't curse a lot, but he cursed a little. But I think in terms of like peak Rakim, like when he was like damn, I forgot about that. He was on that Truth Hurts track. Yeah,
I'm the man with the master plan.
Yeah, thinking of a master plan.
Yeah, thinking of a master plan. And wasn't he recycling like one of his?
Yeah.
That was one of his verses.
No, in that line he goes, it's like he says something like, "It's fucked up, but you never complain." I know he definitely dropped an F-bomb there, but like I think that was something he did later, like when he was like.
Well, he goes. Thinking of a master plan.
When he was really,
anything you want, you could ask your man. You was there with $500,000. That was kilos of velos, and how fast you can. We run like we own the world. Don't you my only girl. And when you're speaking in tongues, something, I don't know.
Squeezing your lungs.
Right. Yeah. There you go. And that was an R&B track, and he was still spitting like multi-syllabic rhyming and.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead,
he doesn't know any other way to do it.
No, he fucking doesn't. Dude, I would love that. I'd love to see it. Rakim, again, now if we're talking about lyricism, I have to because you know what? Even though Big Daddy Kane was taking his shirt off and being Mr. Sexy Man, Big Daddy Kane had bars. He was one of the first artists to use multi-fast syllabic rhyming. You know,
Yeah.
Where it was just continuous rhyme spans. A lot of rappers weren't doing that, where it was just back-to-back rhyming. So I don't know. I might have to bite my tongue. I was about to say that Rakim is more lyrical than Big Daddy Kane, but Big Daddy Kane is a spitter.
I think Rakim is, my opinion, more lyrical than Big Daddy Kane, but like not by much. Like it's one of those things where you can argue either way. Ugh. It's not like, we were like, oh, it's Jay-Z versus Vanilla Ice. It's like clearly it's Vanilla Ice is more lyrical, but like that's definitely more of a gap between them. But with Big Daddy Kane and Rakim, I think it's closer. Although I would say Rakim, I think you would too, and I think on a lot of all-time lists, Rakim's normally ranked higher than
I would give it to
Big Daddy Kane.
As far as rapping, I'm talking about straight hip hop. I have to give it to Rakim. As far as artistry, I gotta give it to Big Daddy Kane.
And then I think it's weird because I love Big Daddy Kane. I really do. I mean, I love Rakim too. But I think Rakim would win the verses. Just because you said Big Daddy Kane had like more radio friendly hits, and he also had plenty of iconic songs too. But I just feel like there's so many Rakim songs that are like, I mean, they were using like a bunch of songs in the Last Dance documentary about the Bulls and Michael Jordan.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Just so many movies, commercials, like just use so much of the stuff he did with Eric B back in the day. So I feel like, even though they both have iconic discographies, I feel like Rakim's is like just slightly more memorable. If you were to take a young person and be like, oh, do you listen to Rakim or Big Daddy Kane? They're like, no. And then you play some of their songs, I think they're more likely to at least recognize the Rakim song. Be like, oh yeah, this from this commercial, or this from this movie or something.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard, other than what we've leaned towards in this conversation, overall, generally, that's a hard decision, because you don't want to disrespect either MC, because they're both gods of this thing. They really are. It would
be so great, and the stories they would have telling, because that's also a great thing about Versus, is that you just tell these stories.
Years ago.
Like you hooked me up with this producer, or like this song came out this way, and everyone just knows someone, and there's some random like artist who will have a big part in this song becoming a big hit, and it's great. So I really hope that they do this.
There's a great video, real quick before we end this off. There's a great video, and I think I briefly brought this up earlier, where DMX is literally meeting Rakim for the first time. He had never met him. Wow. And this was like maybe just a few years ago.
Oh, I was going to say, I was assuming this was like 98.
Oh, no, God, dude. This was like, I think this video is literally from the past 5 years. It's crazy. He went keep in mind, DMX and Rakim are relatively the same age, but Rakim was out before DMX. Yeah. DMX didn't get hot to the late 90s, as opposed to Rakim was already hot, by the
like
early by the late 80s to the early 90s. Rakim was one of the greatest MCs already at that point. DMX was probably underground or a young kid just on the street spitting at that time. He didn't make
people up at that point.
Oh, exactly. He was still in the hood. Rakim was already doing his thing. But there's a video that surfaced where and DMX is spazzing out. He is fanboying so hard. Because he said he grew, because Rakim is a little bit older than DMX, and DMX is just saying, I grew up on you. He's like, I can't believe it, dog. I really am. I can't believe it. It's great. I love you, man. Yeah. And then he makes the point of saying, and so dope about you. You didn't even curse. I love it. It's a great video. You guys Google it. Just Google DMX meets Rakim for the first time. And what makes this great is how humble DMX is. That's great. But what makes it even more great is how humble Rakim is. Rakim is literally like, that's like, Eminem is one of the gods raps right now. It has been. That's like Eminem coming up to let's say me, and he's like, yo, I'm a big fan, da 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 da. Even though he's significantly older than me. It's just the perspective of somebody who you think is great saying you're great.
Yeah, yeah.
And Rakim in his mind is like, well, dog, I think you're amazing, and you think I'm the shit.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, it's just the humbleness from those two is it's emotional. Maybe it'll bring it to your eye, but it's great. It's a great video. Look it up, Vince. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's a great video. And to end this off, man, sign it up. Swiss, Timberland, I'm talking to you too. Get them in there. Versus, just make sure they're all social distancing and wearing masks because it's still a pandemic. Because I know they're doing
we can't lose those guys.
No, they're in that demographic too, age-wise. Yeah. Those guys are in their 50s. So let's play it safe. I know a lot of the verses they've been doing lately have been in studio. So you got to be careful. I appreciate that, but please be careful with those verses because they've been allowing a lot of contact. So let's do it though. I'm ready for it. All right.
So moving on to wrasslin. Is actually going to start off on a somber note. Wait.
Hold on.
You got to wait. I already started with the somber note. I got to finish the somber note.
Yeah, but
and then we move on to it.
I know, but
we can't. No, you can't. We have to finish the somber note.
I know.
It is
I got
poor
something to say.
taste. No. You wait till the somber thing is done,
no,
and then you can say it.
We can't do that. We can't get past what the intro to the segment is. I don't care what the note is. Normally, there'd be a certain song.
No, there's not. We're moving past it.
I know, but I know, but you are. I'm not quite over it yet. You just give me a second. Normally, we'd be talking about
we'll do the rest
piece
in
of
peace,
film,
and then we'll do the rest in peace
with a certain wrestler.
Because we're putting this to rest. We're definitely putting this to rest.
There's a female involved, and then there's this guy, and there was a piece of footage that got leaked. Oh no, it wasn't leaked. It was actually a DVD, and it was something about something in China. I don't you don't remember that, do you?
Nope.
Okay, well, I just thought I'd bring that up because normally there'd be a song about that, but yeah, as you were, Vince.
All right.
Just thought I'd bring that up. That's all.
No, and I thought that you should not. Right. So
I know.
All right.
Haters.
Not haters.
Hate.
This is something that. All right. Now I don't.
Okay. On a more serious note.
How am I going to shift into this?
I know. On a more serious note. No, we do have a serious note to bring up, folks.
Kamala, WWE legend, Hall of Famer, passed away this past week.
70 years old. 70.
Yeah. The Ugandan giant. I'll be honest. I was obviously we grew up on wrestling, but wrestling wasn't on as much as it is now. And I didn't have cable, so I couldn't really watch. So I'm familiar, obviously Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, like that, and then the supporting cast of characters, the Mr. Wonderfuls and the Cowboy Bob Ortons and the Kamalas. I knew of, but I wasn't super familiar with their work. But Kamala was someone who, worked his way up, kind of had a questionable gimmick, I would say. Not
little bit racially edgy, but we talked about this on one of the last episodes. Vince and the WWE were very good about being slightly unsympathetic when it came to that back in the 90s and 80s. So,
but I mean, he took that role, he ran with it, he made it super memorable. And when he passed, a lot of people were
sad.
Yeah, very saddened by it. So rest in peace to Kamala, his family.
It was very sad. And real quick, my take on it. I honestly, because of my age range and my generation, I really only early on remember him as the Ugandan giant, as the belly slapping, village man, savage that they made him. That's all I remember. I will say, it got over. It got over as a heel, and I believe as a babyface, he kind of got over. And he had I don't know if it was memorable, but let's be honest, he had a program with Taker. They had a program.
I would say it was fairly memorable. I mean, obviously, in the grand scheme of Taker's feuds, it's probably not.
Well, it's not up there. It's not up there with Mankind, but is
right. But I mean, at the time, it was.
Oh,
it was definitely memorable.
So
no, good call on that.
absolutely, man. He had that. So rest in peace to that man. 70 years young, and may he rest in peace.
Yeah,
All right.
rest in peace. All right. So I guess while we're on the topic of death and older wrestlers, Twitter and social media went nuts this past week because Marty Jannetty, formerly of the Rockers with Shawn Michaels, the coward who tried to escape through Brutus the Barber's window.
One of the greatest pieces of commentary from Bobby the Brain Heenan in history. That's the type of shit that great commentators, color commentators are made of. He's one of the greatest, and I think I remember him saying that, watching that as a kid. But I watched that just over the years since it's been all over the internet, and I just think to myself, wow, Bobby the Brain Heenan was a great heel commentator. He's like, that coward, he tried to jump through the window to escape. I was like, Bobby Brain Heenan, rest in peace to him as well. That was great.
So from that moment, obviously, Michael's career took off, and Jannetty's kind of stalled, and a lot of it had to do not with his talent, because he was super talented. It had to do with just a lot of demons he had. He was like into drugs and alcohol, and just and granted, so was Michaels. I think Michaels was able to handle it a little better. Jannetty's.
Well, yeah, I guess
he would show up, and he was still politics-wise, matches.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, you're right. Physically, he did. Politics-wise, he was abhorrent. But yes, you're right.
He was the worst.
He's terrible.
So Jannetty has been in and out, and unfortunately, I don't think he's ever fully conquered these demons. But he put the post that went viral. He put on Facebook. I guess he broke up with his girlfriend, and he's kind of had this rambling speech. And he mentioned this story about when he was 13, there was this gay guy who worked at the bowling alley with him and used to sell him weed, and took him behind this back alley and tried to rape him. And he said, that was the first time I ever made a body disappear. He was like, holy shit, did you admit to killing this dude? And did you admit to killing other people? He said it was not the first, it was the first time, but not the last time. And he's like, they never found him. The cops should have checked this nearby lake. So everyone was going nuts about this. He ended up deleting it. And then he had an interview with someone.
The old delete and tweet. Delete and tweet.
I'm not sure what it was. I think someone interviewed him about it. And he kind of to clear up the situation. And he kind of confirmed it. In a weird way. He kind of was like, yeah, here's what happened. And so now the police are actually, there's no statute of limitations on murder. So the police in that area are looking into it. I think they're saying that around the time frame that he's talking about, there's no missing persons reported. So he might get off on it if he killed someone. It's so, and I don't want to be fascinated by this, but it's super fascinating. The fact that he may have just admitted to killing someone and then might walk from it.
Yeah. That's rough. That's, you bringing this article to my attention was actually the first time I had even heard about it. That he tweeted that. Pulled the old tweet and delete is what I meant to say. Tweet and delete. I don't know. This could be a case of could be true. This also could be a case of just a horrible case of clout chasing.
Yeah.
Which is a huge term nowadays with people who just make up radical, outrageous, abhorrent things just to get some type of attention or social media traction. I mean, what the fuck has he done? He's not even in the Hall of Fame, I believe. WWE has not put him in the Hall of Fame yet.
The Rockers aren't in the Hall of Fame yet?
I don't know. I don't think so. They're not think so. I know Michaels is definitely I think. Well, he's definitely in as with DX. Michaels is in Solo too, isn't he?
Is he?
I think he is.
I think he is. He should. I mean, he definitely deserves it.
If he does, if he is, it was years ago. It was nothing recent.
It was probably right after he retired, when
I think so.
Taker retired him. Probably.
But as far as the Rockers as a tag team, I don't recall that ever being a Hall of Fame thing. I don't. I could be wrong. Look it up. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks. But he, with all the issues and the demons and the stuff he probably put WWE through and Vince through with his drug addiction and his alcoholism, I think they have no desire to put him in the Hall of Fame anytime soon or ever. I think he's just one of those people that's just he's never going in. and that's because they don't want to associate themselves with that. They don't want to associate themselves with that type of life. It sounds like clout chasing to me. I don't know. I don't even know a person that would even admit to that. I mean, he's got to know if that is true. He's gone. Once they find out, he's going to spend the rest of his miserable. He's got to be in his 60s at this point.
He looks like it, but he might just be in his 50s.
Could be.
He's probably about the same age as. He's probably in the same age as Michael's. I would imagine.
I thought you were going to say he's probably in the same age as me and you. I was like, oh God, no.
Oh no.
I was going to say, but then what kind of? He must have been using some bad crystal meth, like the worst ever on the market. If he's 30 in his 30s and looks like, no, but yeah, you're right. He could just have aged horribly. I don't know. I think it's clout chasing. I think it's unnecessary. He's got to know that if there's any truth to this, he's gone. So I don't even know why somebody would even admit.
I'm hoping he is. I'm hoping it is something he just made up. Because why?
It's stupid. Yeah.
Because one, I don't want him to have been raped or attempted rape, when he was 13. That's awful. True. So you wouldn't wish that on him. And then
because that would have to be truthful as well. That would have to be a fact that happened. Yeah.
And then I don't. If that guy did that, and then Marty killed him in self-defense, then that's one thing. But the fact that hiding the body and getting rid of it, that's I think where the crime is. He could probably
murder after the fact. That's murder after the fact. Yeah. So he's in trouble. I don't know, man. This is a tough one. Sounds like clout chasing to me, but you never know. But the bottom line is this, and you mentioned it. The man is fighting demons. He is fighting demons and has been for quite some time, and it has ruined his career. I think his singles run was very underwhelming. I think they gave him the Intercontinental title. I think he won the IC title once. I think he had one reign. I don't remember who he won it from. I don't even remember who he had to drop it to. But I do remember him having the IC title. I know his singles push was kind of stupid and juvenile because they basically just were like, you just keep the rocker gimmick.
Yeah.
And Godspeed, Mr. Jannetty. And it didn't get over. I know him in 1, 2, 3 Kid, your favorite song, your favorite wrestler.
I'm not familiar with this gentleman or any of his work.
Oh, yes, you are. You hater. But anyway, him and the 1, 2, 3 Kid won a Survivor Series match. I want to say I think that was 94 or 93. They were the sole survivors, him and 1, 2, 3 Kid. So that was a highlight. That was actually a good Survivor Series style match too. I don't know. Listen, Marty Jannetty, I would switch to decaf. And
I'm not sure you're using any drugs in the system right now, including caffeine.
Well, then there's always paprika. That might be a little painful going up the nose, but they said it's good for the soul and it'll keep you away from the smack. You sound like a clout chaser, sir, and I wish you the best. And if those accusations are true, well, you already know. You already know. Chitty chitty bang bang, nigga. You're out of here. That is such an odd story, by the way. I can't do nothing but, I don't mean to make light of people, any kind of sexual assault or anything like that, male or female. I don't mean to make light of it. But it's just when shit like that just comes out after so many years from a person who has been fighting demons, you can't help but to just crack jokes. I don't know. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry, Marty.
Yeah, we're not making. I don't want to come across like we're making fun of him. It's just more but it's a very odd story. It's a strange story
and random. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just funny to me. So more power to him.
I'm like, we're not making fun of him. You're like, this is funny to me.
It's just I don't. But hey, listen, he's obviously got conviction behind this. So we'll see. We'll see how this plays out.
He might have a conviction ahead of him.
Right? There you go.
Real quick.
And that's how you end on a good pun. That's how you do that.
Real quick. I had to shut the door so there's no noise coming in here. And the thing, so I came back and the thing still moved over to me. So there might be a shot of just emptiness here. So we'll deal with it.
I don't know. I've got a new format on my Zoom, so I don't know I don't know who's on what sometimes. So
yeah. All right. So moving on to more current wrestling, we saw on Raw and SmackDown this week a debut, a new faction. I don't want to put pressure on you.
They owe me some money, Vince. They owe me some money. You know why?
Could you bless us with just a few bars of retribution?
Seeing as though they owe me money and they stole my name, we'll get him. We'll hit him like this. I'm trying to think which one.
You also got part one and part two to go with. Yeah,
I've got two of them. I used to be rejected. Now I get accepted. My flow is eclectic. I am nothing to mess with. From my perspective, they want to take me from a ratchet lifestyle to the big screen. Projection. Okay, I know. Those first bars were kind of weak, so I'll find a freak and make her fucking vagina skeet. And yeah, I beat it raw. Quickly, I was trying to bust. Now I'm left with guilt, paranoia, and vagina crust. What the fuck do I be thinking when I'm macking hoes? When I should be in the studio attacking flows. My bars are... I can't remember something cracked.
That's a very good statement. I was about to say, like, you don't do the whole song.
I wasn't about to. And then part two, I said I got 16 for that ass if you ready for war. Probably slice up and dice you, machetes and swords. Leave your bitch ass bleeding about as heavy as whores. On a period, I'm serious, there better be gore. There's no discussing them. No. I once had a bitch say, Max, you're so Republican. Anyway, you get the point.
So do you think when they finally debut, they'll go with Retribution Part 1 or Part 2 as their
theme?
Music? Yeah.
I was thinking the same fucking thing. No. Let's be real here, Vince. That would be great, but there is not a... if I could quote Vince McMahon and his theme song, there's no chance in hell of them fighting by independently released...
Well, hey, Nikki got her start having her theme for Victoria, so...
Listen, my first Retribution part 1, was actually independently released through major backing independently. I know that's kind of a oxymoron, but Broken Complex was the majors of the indies, at least in LA at that time. So yes, part 2, that was all independent released through Maxstar. So
hey, we got
that would be great.
Too.
Can you imagine the fucking royalties I would get? Oh boy, that'd be great. But they should.
That would be great. And I mean, I could talk about your rap career all day. In fact, that's going to be a little precursor to something might be coming in the future on Popcorn and Booze.
So.
But in the meantime, the faction.
Let's talk about these guys and girls. There's some girls in there.
That's right. Yeah. And that I think is cool. I do kind of like the fact that there's like this sort of pack of wolves mentality faction that we've seen before, but never with both men and women. Yeah. They're all wearing masks, so we can't tell who they are.
All in black, yeah.
They're all very small in the meantime. Like, if you look, they all seem very short.
I actually made a point of that was actually a point I was going to make. None of them look imposing size-wise. None of them.
I read something recently that they're going to not whoever they're using as Retribution now is when they do the reveal, it's going to be someone different. Like, it's going to be like the bigger wrestlers who they're actually using. So they're like stunt doubles now.
What sense is that? People are going to be like, hold on. So that's Batista. You're not going to tell me that Batista was that 5'4" guy running around. Like, I mean, you get my point. It's like,
yeah.
I hear you, and they'll probably do that. But I just, from a continuity standpoint, people are going to be like, boy, they got bigger.
Yeah. Or maybe not. They're talking about Tommaso might be one of them, and he's only like 5'10". So.
Well, what I was gonna say is what it just might be. Obviously, there are a bunch of NXT bring-ups. Mm-hmm. So it could just be the WWE harping on most NXT performers are if you notice, a lot of them are very average size.
Yeah.
They're from the indies. They're doing this whole indie thing. So maybe it's Triple H and Vince. Or Triple H trying to convince Vince, because I don't see this being a Vince thing, size-wise anyway. It could be Triple H just doing what he's been doing best, highlighting the indies, the smaller girls and the smaller guys. The boys, the boys in the back that are average, and the girls that are not China, or Beth Phoenix. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. Let's briefly though. Let's talk about what we've seen. So they debuted on Raw, I believe last week. I don't know the third is August 3rd. They debuted, and it was this whole throughout the night. There was like power failures and all these little things, and I think it was leading towards this whole retribution thing. And then at one point they show a clip of them burning down like an electrical tower or something, aren't they? And then cut to SmackDown, which this past Friday. They do not a full on debut because they didn't reveal themselves, but they do an actual showing debut of, as far as you seeing them, in their form and not just on footage. They come out and beat the hell out of a bunch of audience members and then cut the ropes and tear the ring up.
Yeah.
And they're screaming and they're like, yeah, and there's all these crazy angles and they scare the shit out of the commentary team. And Corey Graves.
The one dude almost took Corey Graves' head off.
Corey Graves, he scattered like a roach when the light turned on. Did you see him? He got the fuck out of it.
He still has some moves in him. He took to a knee, like kept going.
He got the fuck out of there, dude.
I'm not a huge Corey Graves fan, but that was impressive.
It was very impressive, and it just reminds me of the time. It reminds me of the time, not the same, but just as far as like funny commentary moments. It reminds me of the time where Brock Lesnar was on this rampage. This was like 4 or 5 years ago, and I think it was after WrestleMania when he lost the title in that triple threat. The main event, it was the WrestleMania 31 with him and Roman Reigns, and then remember Rollins cashed in. So the next night, I think it was the next night on Raw, Brock was pissed. And so he told, he like F5'd the cameraman. And then at one point, again, I don't know if it was that Monday or the following Monday, but it's right after that. He goes on this rage, and I think it's Booker T, Michael Cole, and JBL on commentary. And he runs over to the commentary table, and he flips the desk while the three of them are behind it. Just in this rage, and they cut away, and when they cut back, Booker T's leg is like, and Michael Cole's like, they're like dead.
Yeah.
And it's the funniest thing because it was just like, they sold that so silly. It just, it's like, oh God, all he did was flip the desk. Why are the three of you dead and broken?
Because it's Lesnar. Lesnar,
oh my God,
flipping a desk is a death sentence.
Vince, when I tell you that shit was funny, that was hilarious. And the reason that reminds me of that is just how some of these commentators sell things. It's funny. It's really funny. But yeah, they got the hell out of there. And that's so now we got retribution. So where do you think this obviously they're a anti-establishment, uprising, we're against the system type gimmick faction. That's their gimmick. And there's a lot they could do with that. They wouldn't be the first. You had DX. They were the anti-establishment. They were the cooler, hipper ones, though. I have a feeling like they had more fun with it. I have a feeling Retribution is going to be like this real serious, militant. Like we're here to take over. We want to see Vince. We want to see Vince McMahon now.
I also feel like it's obvious. I think it's also influenced by like Antifa, and I think we know that the McMahons skew more Republican, and they're friends with the Trumps, so they could see this as like, like all these protesters in Portland, like wearing the mask and just causing all this damage. They're the bad guys, so we're going to make them bad guys. So I think it's like a cool wrestling angle, but I get the pushback on this being like it might be construed as tone deaf, and considering the current environment.
It's been done before. It's been done before. I explained this last episode. Listen, there have been two militant black groups who were actually upset for the right reasons, and they were the heels. Yeah. There was New Jack and Mustafa were the gangsters, and they were the heels for being black militant men that were pissed off about Rodney King. And then of course you had the Nation of Domination. Yeah. They were the militant pro-black Black Panther-esque group, which you guys do your history. The Black Panther movement was not this violent, crazy, kill white people spree thing that they've made it, but the Nation modeled after that, and they were the heels. So he's known for taking something like that and being like, hey, so he could be these could be a group of progressives that they're going to literally be like, see, bunch of looters and rioters.
And maybe that's the reason why they're so small. Is
God.
like maybe they're going to be like, oh, we're just going to kick your ass. Like we're going to have big, strong Americans who respect the flag come in and put you guys through tables. So, I mean, I think they're going to make them out to be a threat, but
they better be careful. They better be very careful with that, because they tried that with that whole patriotic thing with the Forgotten Sons, and you saw how that worked out.
Well, the one guy was living the gimmick.
He's an
That's
idiot.
who he really was, and the rest of his friends were like, "Stop it! You're wow!"
Yeah.
Like I actually had forgotten.
He ruined
Forgotten Sons.
Exactly.
Like,
he ruined that whole thing for all of them. All of them. They're done. They are off TV.
Yeah, like I mean, I haven't watched NXT in a while, but I haven't seen them there. I definitely haven't seen him on Raw or SmackDown.
They're done, dude. Yeah, they put him on that main roster, and he tweeted that bullshit. Was it on Twitter?
Yeah.
He tweeted that bullshit, and that is it. Done.
As Republican as the McMahons are, they're like, don't fuck up the bag.
It's a PR nightmare, and he's taking coins. He's taking them coins out their pockets, and like you said, Vince was like, "That's not good shit, because you're fucking up. You're fucking up the bag.
Yeah,
you're fucking up the bag." So he did, and he fucked up the rest of the group's bags too. They're done.
Yeah.
I'd be so hot. I'd be like, "You sorry son of a bitch. I hope you burn and die in a fiery flame. Our careers are over because of you."
Yeah, maybe they can distance themselves and be like, "Look, we weren't with him, so if you want to do a new gimmick with me, where I come out as a scarecrow, I don't know, anything. I'll literally do anything. Just give me another chance."
It was ridiculous. But shout out to the Retribution. Let's see how this ends up. Real quick before we end this off, let's talk about. We mentioned a few. Let's talk about just a quick few of our favorite factions. Obviously, if you're a boomer, for the people that were from the baby boomer era, their factions were what? The Four Horsemen.
Four Horsemen.
You had the original. No. I was gonna say you had the original Heart Foundation, but they were a tag team. So if we're talking factions, I would say the Four Horsemen. They had a
NWO. I mean, that was later, but
So let's go through each generation. So baby
Freebirds.
They were technically a tag team, but there were three.
There was
of them.
more than
There were three of them. And then when you move into kind of our generation, me and you had what? You had the Heart Foundation, the new with it's so sad too to think about it, because every member of that group is dead but Brett.
Yeah.
Brian Pillman is dead. British Bulldog is dead. Owen, the saddest death of all of them, he's dead. And then there's Brett.
Jim Neidhart as well.
Natty's dad, he's gone. So you had them, DX, of course.
Yeah.
Two incarnations. What was your favorite? Which version? Which incarnation did you enjoy?
It's weird, because I hated the big version of DX with like Billy Gunn and X-Pac and Road Dogg.
Oh, I love that.
That was my favorite. No, the reason I hated them was because they were doing their job so well. Like it was when they were like screwing the Rock. It was
heels,
like 99, 2000, and like Triple H would be like, "Rock, you're fighting 3-on-1 tonight against DX," and like I hated them so much. I hated them. So I probably picked them just because they're the ones who drew the most reaction, and I can look back and appreciate what they did. But even now, to this day, I'm like, God, I hate you guys so much, because they were so good at their jobs.
If you're going to quote Triple H, Vince, you got to do it exactly how The Rock did it. "I am the game, and I'm going to be talking for 20 minutes about absolutely nothing." That's how you are supposed to do it. You were right on that note, because they were great heels, but even their run. Even when, it was the Nation of Domination versus the DX. Remember that whole run at like 98?
Yeah.
And it was The Rock versus Triple H. The two faction leaders were going head to head. So because they were going head to head, their boys were backing them up. So that was a great feud, by the way. That's one of the greatest faction programs. They don't talk about it. Another great faction program was the Shield and the Wyatts. That was a great. If you look at those body of wrestling matches, that was a really good program that they had with the Shield as the faces, and let's talk about the Shield. One of the great. They're already positioned as one of the greatest factions of all time.
Well, yeah, because every single member is a multi-time world champion.
Former champ, yeah.
Which I'm not sure, like, what other faction can you say that about?
I cannot name a faction that broke off. And here's the thing. Let's call it, let's call it like we see it. Let's call it like it is. Call a spade, as they say. There was also only 3 of them, so it was a lot easier. It was harder to break off a faction like DX because there were 5 of them. Once it became to the 5, and not everybody had that star appeal. It just so happens all 3 of those guys had star appeal.
Well, then even like a 3-man faction, like even look at NWO, the original incarnation where Hogan clearly like all-time like world champ, Kevin Nash, Hall, who should have been a champ, never won a title,
never won a heavyweight championship. That's Razor Ramon or Scott Hall. I don't understand that. I never understood
because he had a big alcohol problem as well.
I know,
like he was someone that kind of genetied his way out of.
He did.
Chances.
He's a product of his own downfall. He is, because they can't put you in that position if they can't trust you.
Yeah.
And during his Razor Ramon run, I still I think he should have had at least 1 championship run. Even during his Razor Ramon run, he was on a lot of drugs and he was a pill guy, I believe, and a lot of alcohol. So they couldn't trust him. But yeah, you got NWO, you got DX, you got the Nation, the Hart Foundation. The Shield.
And the thing about the Shield, real quick, also about them all being world champs and main event guys and being like the stars of the WWE, where they weren't like a collection of, we've already become big stars and we're going to come together now.
Yeah.
It's like they came up as like this destructive force as rookies and then ended up all becoming superstars.
They were the original Retribution. They were the original, like, come in and go against the system and fuck shit up, dude.
And 3 of them.
Another faction, and you made the point right now, another big faction that were already established before they became a faction, with the exception of like 2 members, Evolution.
Yes.
Triple H was already a huge, a huge star, but he was already grandfathered in that business. Ric Flair was already a legend.
But they did make 2 stars. You're right.
Then Batista and Randy Orton were kind of just starting out, so they benefited from it the best as rookies. But a great faction, and then they went away, and then obviously came back and did that run where they went against the Shield. But there's been so many great factions over the years, man, and I think we should start our own faction. We should call it. Potato chips and barbecue sauce. I'll be the barbecue sauce, and you'll be the potato chips. And we can start this faction. We'll just come out. I was just saying that we should start our own faction called Potato Chips and Barbecue Sauce, where we just are just 2 guys. Our faction will be we're just 2 guys at a picnic, and we just come out with bags of chips and bottles of barbecue sauce. We're just going to have a barbecue. And then you know what's going to happen? Because I'm black, some goddamn Karen is going to call the police on us. Because we're barbecuing, Vince. She'll be like, oh my God. She'll be like, oh my God, the white guy's cool. He's just here to clean up the park. But the black guy, you're obviously up to no good. So I'm calling the police on specifically you.
Our catchphrase would be, after we lay waste to someone, like, and then put like a picnic blanket over top of them, like a body bag, and be like,
okay,
we're all that in a bag of chips.
Ow! And on that note, Karen for sure is going to call the police on me.
Mm-hmm.
Good. I think that'll work. I think that's what we'll do. Listen, there's been great factions over the years, and more power to Retribution. We'll see how they... WWE, you motherfuckers, you owe me money. I had a Retribution name before you thought of this. So you're going to be hearing from my lawyers. I'm kidding. I have no lawyer. I can't even afford...
No. You have a very esteemed law firm backing you up. It's,
really?
The lawyers of potato chips and barbecue sauce.
Ah, yeah. Laying
down the law.
Well, you did say lay, chips. Lay. We could do this all day. With that being said, kids, the kings of puns are going to go ahead and sign out. It has been a good episode as usual. Support us, man. share, repost, do what you got to do.
Do we want to give them a taste for next week, or we'll just?
I think we should. As Vince mentioned earlier, you guys, listen, I don't mean to brag. I really don't. I say this as humbly as I can. I've had a very interesting 18-year music career that I hope will continue. I never reached or have reached yet. It's not over. I still love music. I still will continue to do music. So I don't want to say I never. I want to say I haven't yet reached the stature and the status I would like to, which is to have a Billboard #1 hit before I'm 40. That's the goal. I need one. But I've had a rather interesting, long, semi-successful career independently, and it's large in part due to a specific independent label I was attached to for 3.5 years. That is Broken Complex. Some of you that know me know that era, remember that era. You went to some of the shows, you saw some of the videos. Vince has just been introduced to that the past year or so I've known him, and he's been very supportive. So next episode, I think we should cover some of that, right, Vince? I think
yes, sir. Yeah, we're gonna
interview style.
In. Yeah, we'll figure out. You love telling stories, so this will be an opportunity for you to tell some of your stories. I don't know how I would like for you to like really delve in and be kind of like hard hitting, but obviously if there's some things you don't want to touch upon, we will see. But I think it's going to be very interesting to sort of go through your career as a hip hop artist up to this point.
Absolutely. And right around the time I disbanded away from Broken Complex, I actually had a rapper friend of mine who said, listen, because it didn't end all that great, which we will talk about. But he made a point of saying, it's like the whole phrase after a person you love passes away. Don't mourn the death, celebrate the life. So that's basically what he told me. He was like, listen, dude, just think about what you got from that. He was like, you were able to say you were viral at one point. And I thought about that and I was like, he's right. So I have to embrace that. And with that embracing comes a lot of stories to go along with that. So I've dealt with that, and it was a good period of my life, and I want to talk about it, because it's always fun to talk about experiences musically. And I ain't no spring chicken anymore. I know I look 20, but damn it, I feel 48 and a half. All right,
your brain's like 82. It's
God, 90. What are you talking about? It gets older every day. A year gets every time I sneeze, a year gets tacked on. I feel old about everything. Coughing, sneezing, and then no, it ain't COVID. It's age. That's what it is, folks. All right. With that being said, you guys, we have come to the close. Love ya. If you watch the show, please, let us know how we're doing. Drop a comment on the YouTube page. Subscribe. Thumbs up. The little thumbs up. Subscribe. And let us know how we're doing. And with that being said, you guys, I am the BC riding, the scholars on deck, high flying, jet flying, limousine riding, son of a gun, LAREN Maxstar. Oh, I need the microphone. Remember Mr. Kennedy when he would come down the mic? Yeah. I got a Mr. Star More.
I am the jabroni beating, pie eating Vince Eustace.
And you guys, you have reached episode 8. We're here of Popcorn
and Booze.
Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. Gurgle, gurgle. Bye-bye. See ya. Gotta go.